already know what time it is. If you stick around to the end, you know what it is. This is how you make your money because my man MMA Pickers has some of the best picks in the world. So here we go now. It's MMA Pickers' turn to do his picks of the week, baby. The stage is yours, my guy.
All right, we got a nice, scary card with a lot of razor thin matches. But regardless of that, I think we can find some value here. Got a nice UFC card pay per view coming up this weekend, obviously. Um, there's 14 fights. So I'm just going to go through a couple of different bets I like. I'm going to go through a couple of different method bets, a couple of different parlay boosters, and then a couple of underdogs who I found good value in. So just to go through a couple of good parlay boosters, I think candidate Nichikwu, even though he's coming in on short notice, he should be good to go for a win. Not super impressed with Brzezinski this far in his MMA career. I think Nichikwu is the far more skilled fighter. He also got a pretty easy win not too long ago, so he's not that long out of camp. So don't think too much about the short notice. In the recent past, he definitely has been training pretty hard, just coming off of a victory where he took no damage. Um, I'm really excited to see Clay Guida take on Chase Hooper. A lot of MMA fans don't know, but these guys actually did fight once, not in MMA, but in grappling. And Chase Hooper won via leg lock. I think it was actually something we mentioned earlier in the show when somebody asked how I predicted Chase Hooper would win. Chase Hooper is one of probably the best Brazilian Jiu Jitsu players in the UFC, but something special about his BJJ is it's new wave. So it's almost like Americanized Jiu Jitsu. Lots of leg attacks, lots of very tricky bolos, lots of great ways to take the back. He's really, really good on the ground, but he's good in a way that's very hard to prepare for and not a lot of people have seen. Whereas Guida obviously is very good at positional control coming from his wrestling background. But we've seen in the past that both his submission game and his submission defense are very limited and very old school. I think this favors Chase Hooper very heavily. I don't think the money line on Chase Hooper is worth touching, but I threw in a little bit on Chase Hooper by submission at minus 165. I really think that's excellent value on this line. Um, I like Max Griffin as an underdog against Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa, yeah, he looked great against Tony Ferguson, but I don't want to talk too much crap about Tony Ferguson. I love Tony Ferguson.
I
Uh,
love him too.
but listen, if you look at the three fights before that, he got finished twice. He got pretty much dominated on the ground for 3 rounds by Sean Brady. And he hasn't had like a legitimate win in the UFC. Sorry, Tony, since 2021. And he's just looked slow, a step behind, a little bit old. Uh, I don't think Max Griffin is like the greatest prospect ever by any means. It's obviously like a very experienced fighter, but he is coming off a hard fought win against a really game contender in Jeremiah Wells. And in his last 5 fights, his only 2 losses are a ranked Neil Magny back in 2022, which, again, Neil Magny's getting up there in age. 2022 Neil Magny and 2024 Neil Magny, two different guys, two completely different guys. And then Michael Morales, who's like an undefeated potential title contender in the future. Good win against Jeremiah Wells. He had a good win against Tim Means. Got a good win against Carlos Condit before that. Keenan Song. Um, he's a scrapper. He's a scrappy guy, and I think he has enough left in the tank to get it done against Michael Chiesa. I think the underdog odds are a little crazy. I think he's going to come in the bigger, stronger, more athletic guy. Does have 9 KOs on his record. There's a strong chance he puts Chiesa's lights out. So at plus money, I'm going to ride Max Griffin all day in that fight. Moving on down the card, Josh Van versus Cody Durden. I really like Josh Van in this fight. He's going to come in as the smaller guy. He has a little bit less of a grappling acumen, but he is so fast and so slick with that striking. And he had such good submission defense and ground defense and takedown defense in his last fight, which he was getting pieced in the first round, but he just turned it around. And his cardio is so untouchable. I just have to ride Josh Van. The only time I've seen Josh Van take an L was that flash knockout. Who's the bald guy from St. Louis? Oh, he's so good too. Help me out here. King. I know you know his name. Charles Johnson. I didn't need any help. Charles Johnson. That's the only time I've seen him take a loss. Flash knockout. Charles Johnson, obviously an incredible fighter in his own right. I think Josh Van has some of the best hands in the division. At minus 165, I think the money line is plenty generous to take Josh Van. One caveat is if he gets grapple fucked, it's going to be a long night. Evloev versus Sterling. I'm not going to pick this one. I do like the dog money on Sterling. I do think this is a really close matchup. I don't know why Sterling is a 2-1 dog. I probably will put a little sprinkle on that, but I think there's a really safe parlay booster here. The odds aren't fantastic on it, but that's why it's a parlay booster. Minus 425, or I'm sorry, minus 445 for this fight to go over 2.5. I mean, I think everybody knows why. You have two grinded out wrestlers here. Both are going to have excellent wrestling defense, and excellent submission defense. I don't think either of these guys is finishing one another on the ground, but I think this will come down to whoever logs more control time. I know Mosvar has been fighting, fighters in this division for a while. He's undefeated. Aljo's looked extremely impressive since he's joined the division. He had an extremely impressive performance against Cater also. This is a title contender. So, both guys are going hard in camp. They're going to bring their A game. I think this is a toss-up. I don't know who the better wrestler is. I don't think anybody knows who the better wrestler is. And I think Evloev has the favoritism because he's Russian and his name ends with Ev and he's bigger. But I don't think that's necessarily the tail of the tape. So I think this one's a pick 'em. I think the over is a sure thing. And sprinkle on Aljo. 2-1 odds. Why not? Okay, Randy Brown versus Brian Battle. Another sure thing in this one. You have two long, rangy point fighters. Brian Battle obviously is a bona fide finisher, but he does take a little bit of time to warm up. Randy Brown likes to fight from distance and use his length. I wouldn't really call him a power puncher. So I have this fight starting round 2 at minus 400, another parlay booster. Randy Brown's like a 2-1 dog. He started off as a 3-1 dog for some reason. I grabbed him at 3-1 dog money. I think Brian Battle's great. And I lost betting against Brian Battle. Kevin Giussette. I bet on Kevin Giussette. I thought he was going to get it done on the ground. I was completely wrong. So, new respect for Brian Battle. He can definitely get it done against Randy Brown. If you would have asked me 2 fights ago, I would have said Randy Brown takes his head off. But 2-1 dog money on Randy Brown, that's a great bet. So for the sure parlay booster, I'm taking the just over 1 round. Simple, easy bet, 5 minutes. And for the fun money, a little sprinkle on Randy Brown. Next fight, we have Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo, and we talked about this fight a little bit, in the beginning of the show. I'm gonna go with Themba. I actually think Vicente is the more skilled fighter, but this goes into something Mac also touched on during the show: the level of athleticism. I think Themba is one of the most athletic guys we've seen come into the UFC in a long time. He's built out of granite, has a gas tank for days. He's shown greatly improved wrestling. He's working with really, really good team at American Top Team. He's improving vastly. On the flip side, although I do think Vicente has a lot more experience and probably has more skills both on the feet and the ground, just from a technical level, the lack of athleticism compared to Themba, and I emphasize compared to Themba, Vicente is definitely an athletic guy, and just we've seen his chin deteriorating in recent times. I don't have a ton of faith in Vicente. I think minus 160 is a great price on Themba here. I think that's really good value, so I'm going to rock with Themba. I can't really pick a method on this one. I could see it being either a knockout or points, but just I think minus 160 is plenty generous on the money line on Themba, so I'm just going to rock with that. There's a reason they had this guy slated to fight Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz in his heyday, of course, an absolute monster, but going from Nick Diaz to Themba, that's a much more dangerous opponent in my mind. All right, next one up, and I'm going to give you what I think is a very valuable underdog here, and then I'm also going to give you a nice parlay booster for this fight as well. You already know. You already know, King. That's right. We're talking about Dominique Reyes versus Anthony Smith, Lionheart. Dominique Reyes is can you pull up the odds? I think he's what is he, a minus 350 or something last I checked? Let me double check on DraftKings.
Which is crazy is it doesn't have odds up here for them.
So I'm on DraftKings, minus 375 to Anthony Smith at plus 295. Guys, Who the hell knows how this fight's going to go? I have no clue. You have no clue. One guy's a little better on the feet. One guy's a little better on the ground. Both guys are way over the hill, falling out of the rankings. Like, I have no clue how this fight's going to go. This should be a 50-50 fight. This is two guys who were both once close to being the best in the world and are now over the hill. They both have the skills to get this done. They also both have the chins to go night-night in 2 seconds. I think this should be a pick'em. If it's a pick'em, I'm going with the plus 295. I'm rocking with Anthony Smith. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. Granted, this one's a risky one because both of these guys have no chins, but I'm also going to say the over 1 round at minus 300 is a really good price on a parlay booster. I don't think there's going to be a first round knockout here. These are two older, more skilled, more technical guys. I think there's going to be a slow start to this fight. That being said, if somebody gets hit hard, I don't think either of these guys have a chin left to speak of. So the official pick, Anthony Smith, basically 3-1 odds. Not by any means predicting an Anthony Smith win, just pointing out that's excellent betting value on this fight. And I think there's a strong chance the over 1 round hits. So I like both of those bets on these fights. This is a little bit of a favoritism pick. King, you could yell at me next week if I'm wrong. Yeah. Wow, you're good, dude. You're reading my mind. I'm going to go with Nate the Train to beat Choi. I think Choi does have an advantage on the feet, but I think the most easy path to victory here is Nate Landwehr's ground advantage over Choi. I also think Nate's a bit more athletic and a bit more crazy. I think the Nate crazy, it works for him. He's a nutcase. He doesn't care. He'll just go. He's going in there to die. I love Nate Landwehr. As you can see, this is a slightly biased pick. Nate's a minus 130. This fight's a pick 'em as it should be. I just like his skill set a little better. All respect in the world to Choi. Choi's a beast, and he could totally win this fight. But I'm rocking with Nate at minus 130. I think that's a good price on him. All right, we're gonna go over the main card now. The fight that shouldn't be on the main card but is on the main card, we're gonna do first. So I know you know who that is. There it is. Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie. And I have a prediction, and this is probably the way I'm going to bet. But before I even get into the prediction, I do have a long shot here that I really, really like. It's probably not going to hit. Let's be real here, but it could. 12-1, Kron Gracie by submission. 11-1, Kron Gracie by decision. And for Kron Gracie to win by submission or decision, 6-1. And here's why I like it. Bryce Mitchell's fantastic. Bryce Mitchell is one of the more dominant featherweights we've ever seen on the ground. He has skills for days. He's got that farm boy strength. He's great on the mic. We all love Bryce Mitchell. And all of these are contributing to the fact that he's a 10-1 favorite here. He is coming off 2 brutal knockouts. The last one was so brutal. He had a seizure on the floor and got carried off on a stretcher, foaming from the mouth. They had to take the camera off of him. But if you go watch the clips of the people filming from cage side, he was foaming from the mouth, all of his limbs shaking. This dude got knocked out bad. How the hell do we know how he's going to come back in the octagon? And not only that, but obviously, Kron Gracie's no slouch on the ground. He's going to spend majority, I think at least, if we get anything that is a shell of Bryce Mitchell that we're used to, he's going to spend majority of this fight on his back on the ground. But at the same time, he can get a submission from there. Maybe I'm underestimating his wrestling. He has great grappling from everywhere. Maybe he logs more top control time than Bryce Mitchell and wins a decision. Knockout would be pretty insane. I don't see that happening necessarily. I think this is going to probably be more of a ground exchange than anything else. But hey, Bryce Mitchell, his chin demolished. The fact that you're getting like 5-1, 10-1, 20-1 on these props for Kron Gracie, sprinkle. Put $5 on it. See what happens. Never know. We've hit a lot of those on these chat. There's a lot of value in them. That being said, the official prediction, Bryce Mitchell by decision minus 200. I'm going to be using that as both a money line bet and a parlay booster. I think I have 2 more to go over here. Let me see. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go over the last 3 fights on the card. First, let's talk about Cyril Gane. I'm actually just gonna take him money line as a parlay booster. I think he'll probably win by decision. If anyone's interested in being a bit more risky than that, the odds on him by decision are minus 150. Um, but he does have the power to get a knockout. He has been working his ground game a lot since the John Jones fight, so there are a couple of elements that are unpredictable. I'm okay with just using him as a parlay piece. I think a lot of people are very high on Volkov right now because he's on a win streak, and I think a lot of people also, for some reason, don't seem to remember that this is a rematch. But if there's anything that Volkov really eats off of in his UFC career, it's the fact that he's a long rangey kickboxer who's technical. And there's not a lot of long rangey kickboxers who are technical in the heavyweight division of the UFC. So he's able to use his, like guys like Sergey Pavlovich, he's able to use technique and footwork to outpoint those guys. You're not outpointing Cyril Gane in a kickboxing match. You're just not. Nobody in the UFC is outpointing Cyril Gane in a kickboxing match. Nobody in the heavyweight division. Not one single fighter is a better point fighter in that entire division than Cyril Gane. If Volkov is going to do what Volkov's best at, he's going to lose at that game. I don't see Volkov trying to take the fight to the ground. If anyone's going to, maybe Cyril, but I don't, because he does have wins by submission on his record. But I just don't see either of these guys going to the ground. They're both specialists on the feet. I'm just going to pick the better striker to win outright. I'm just going to take Cyril. It seems like Vegas agrees with me. He's a 4-1 now. Holy cow! I got him at I think 350 or 370. But like I said, if you want to get a bit riskier, minus 135 on points is a great bet. I only got minus 150. Minus 135 on points is actually a phenomenal bet. I might now that I'm seeing that, I might take that. So yeah, Cyril Gane, we're going to take him to win, and we're going to assume he's going to win a decision, especially because it's a 3-round fight. And these, unlike most heavyweights, these guys do have the cardio to be in good shape at the end of a 3-round fight. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay. All right, next I want to talk about Shavkat versus Gary. So this is a much anticipated fight. I actually think the odds should be closer than they are. I am like Apollo. I also hate the Ian Gary persona. I could talk a lot more crap about Ian Gary than Apollo, I'm sure. And I also love Shavkat because he's if you're an MMA fan, you love Shavkat. I mean, 18 fights, 18 finishes. What more could you ask for from a guy? That being said, you have two undefeated guys here. They basically have the same names on their resume. He has Jeff Neal and Stephen Thompson, and he has Jeff Neal and MVP. It's the same thing. The guys they've beaten at the top is what I mean. One guy specializes in striking. One guy specializes. I mean, Shavkat's good everywhere, but he's definitely, his advantage in this fight is going to be in the grappling department more so than anything. I do like Shavkat to get this done. I do think he's more well-rounded. I think he's more skilled. I don't really care about all the sparring bullshit and drama, like he got tapped, he this, that. Sparring isn't fighting. There's a reason you don't talk about sparring when you're fighting, because the fighters themselves, they want to go to the gym, have a safe place where they can work on the stuff that they're bad at. And I'm no fighter, but I can even tell you just from training a little jiu-jitsu, there are days where I go into the gym and I love to wrestle and I love being on top and I pull guard every round because I'm like, oh, I really suck at guard. I should probably do some work on my guard. So I don't really think too far into what happened during sparring. That means nothing to me if he got submitted or if he didn't. It just means he took a risk that he wouldn't necessarily take during a fight. But I do think Shavkat gets this. I think his easiest path of victory is going to be on the ground. I think it's going to be similar to the Thompson fight, what we saw. Obviously, we're going to see a bit more resistance from Gary than Thompson, I assume. But we're also not going to get a Shavkat with a broken foot. So the money line on Shavkat is fine as a parlay booster. I found a nice bet that I like that I think there's a good amount of value. Shavkat Rakhmonov to win by submission or decision specifically is at minus 125. And I think that's what I'm going to ride with. Again, he could win by knockout. He's very talented on the feet. Obviously, I do think Ian Gary's better on the feet, but I think that's the reason that I'm going submission or decision. I don't understand why he would look for the knockout when he just has a much easier path to victory. And I think what the Wonder Boy fight showed us is that he's here to win and he's here to take his path to victory. He's not here to prove anything. So I think he will use his advantages, and I think that's a good safe bet for you guys. Final fight of the night. This is a tough one to bet on. I'm pretty confident that Pantoja wins, but I like the odds on Kai Asakura. I think Kai Asakura is a better value as far as the odds go. I think if you guys don't know him, I know he's not so popular in America. Definitely go watch his Ryzen fights. They're absolutely incredible. And he's one of the best non UFC champions in the world. But then again, Pantoja has cleared out the toughest guys in the toughest promotion on the planet, and they're literally bringing in new blood because they don't have anyone left in the UFC for him. So you got to go with that guy. He's just got a more proven resume. Um, Also, it's very hard to judge how Kai is going to do in this fight, given that this is such a step up in competition for him. So I'm really hesitant to pick a method or even pick a time. There's a very real possibility that this fight starts and Pantoja is many levels above him and he ends the fight very quickly. There's a very real possibility that Kai is just too fast and too twitchy and Pantoja underestimates him and get caught with something. This is a true fight because we have so many question marks around it. We don't know what's going to happen. But that being said, I'm going to make the official prediction. Alexander Pantoja, money line, minus 260. Probably not worth a money line bet, but should be a nice parlay booster. If you guys want to check out the Outlet SV or my X, I know I've been a little slow on X. I do apologize to everyone, but I'm there every week. The Outlet SV, all the picks go up before the fights, and I'll also throw in some parlays, a couple more long shots. But I know you all are tired of hearing me talk, so go out there and make some money.